Hello, friends and fans, students of flight theory and aerodynamics. I would like you to know that my aviation airplane YouTube videos entail more than flight theory and aerodynamics topics. I know that lately I have been covering the relationship between the air and the solid. In the air, an airplane flying in the air. In my last, yeah, that's what I've been doing lately. In my last previous video, I use your own body to illustrate that relationship, the relationship between the air and the solid, and I use your body to illustrate that relationship. My goal is to tackle the main four main aerodynamic forces that act on an aircraft on an airplane in flight. That's my goal. I want to tackle them one by one individually. And I'm talking, of course, I'm talking about lift, weight, thrust, and drag. I will be posting videos about those forces, their relationships with the air, their actions on the airplane in flight. That's the reason why I'm trying to prepare you. So when the time comes to watch them, it will be a little easier for you to understand the concepts that will be presented to you. But today I am going to instead of using your body to illustrate the relationship between the air and the solid, and the body moving through it, I'm going to use a cylinder. There's two ways you can use the cylinders to there are two ways that you can use the cylinder to observe how the air act on it. The cylinder can be still, not rotating, or it can be rotating. So that's what I'm going to try to do tonight, but today. But I don't think I'm going to be able to do both aspects of that relationship. I think what I'm going to do is tackle the still, the non-rotating cylinder, and then in a future video, then I will tackle the relationship of the air with a rotating cylinder. Let's take a look at this picture here. you can see that cylinder. You can see a cylinder on this picture. It's a black cylinder. Okay, the cylinder can be, it can stay still, not moving, not rotating, but it can also rotate. So that's what we're going to talk about today or tonight, depending on where you are in this world. So, all right. Okay. Okay. Instead of using your body today to illustrate the relationship between the air and the solid, and moving through it, consider a cylinder in relation to the air, just like the cylinder, just like the one I just showed you. That cylinder is suspended in the air between two rods, maybe 5 or 6 feet high, and 5 or 6 feet apart. And that cylinder is rotational, even manually. You can use your hand to rotate it. Okay, it's movable. But we're not going to, like I just told you at the start of the video, we're going to tackle a non-rotational cylinder for now, and then later on in future videos I will tackle the rotational cylinder. Okay, now of course you and I, we do not have a wind tunnel like Italian Mr. Leonardo da Vinci and the Wright brothers, like those people had back in the days, well, back in the years, to experiment with the relationship of the air and the solid, such as the wing of an airplane, for example. The Wright brothers had used the wind tunnel approximately 400 years after Leonardo da Vinci, prior to accomplishing the first controlled, sustained flight of a powered, heavier than air machine. And that, as you may know, that happened on December 17th, 1903, in North Carolina, south of Kitty Hawk. Well, wind tunnels, they are nothing but large tubes with air blowing through them. The tunnels, they are actually used to replicate, to emulate the actions of an object flying in the air or moving along the ground. So that's what a wind tunnel does. It's just like you take it's just like a replicate in of the air, okay, um, moving through the big tubes, large tubes, and then just like is this what the observation is the same observation you would make if you were uh, looking at an outside at an object actually moving through the air. That's the same thing. That's a replicate of that. That's in it for yeah. That's what wind tunnel does. A wind tunnel does. And then this is what, like I just told you, this is what the Wright brothers used to experiment with the airfoils with the wings they were building. They were building at the time to build their flyers. So that's what a wind tunnel is. Okay, but you and I, we don't have we don't have a wind tunnel to use in order for us to observe how the air and an object moving through it interact. We don't have that, so we're going to do our best to mentally imagine these that fact. Okay, so now let's see. So now, okay, we don't have a wind tunnel to observe the interaction of the air with an object moving through it. Now imagine, in this case, imagine some sort of a little cabin that you have in your backyard, for example, and then in the little cabin, closed up, and then you have a gigantic air blower. Okay, since we don't have the sophisticated indicators and static pressure taps, anything like that to observe that the action of the air on the solid body or on the cylinder. Okay, since we're using a cylinder and vice versa, so well, we're going to use our imagination. Okay, so now let us start our observational experiment mentally. Okay, you have your like I just told you, you have the cylinder that just like the one I just showed you at the beginning of the video, and you have two poles. Okay, and you place your cylinder at the ends of the poles, would say like maybe say probably 6 or 5 feet, and then the cylinder can rotate. You can even rotate it with your hand. Okay, now what you just imagination, because you don't actually have a cylinder in front of you, anything like that. Now you take the blower, the gigantic air blower that you have. Okay, place it to the left of your cylinder, which is the front of you, the front of your cylinder. Place it like about maybe 5 or 6 feet in front of, to the left of the cylinder. Okay, like consider the left of the cylinder as the front of the cylinder. Okay, do not rotate the cylinder. Okay, let it be, let the cylinder be still, no movement at all. Okay, so just like I just showed you, just like I just told you earlier, we don't have any indicators, we don't have any sensors, we don't have any static pressure taps to monitor anything, like like a true wind tunnel. But we're gonna try. We're gonna try to imagine everything, you know, just to make a point. So one thing that I want you to know, my friends and fans, especially the students of aerodynamics and flight theory. In any movement we will talk about is expressed in vector, not speed. Okay, whatever static pressure or relative wind, stuff like that. I'm not talking about speed. I'm talking about velocity. I'm talking about vector. I'm not talking about speed. I'm talking about a vector which is velocity, which is made of speed and direction. That's a vector. Okay, velocity, not speed but velocity. So as you know, a vector is a speed that has direction, and it is represented by an arrow. Okay, the head of the arrow indicates direction, and the length of the arrow body indicates value. That means that if I tell you that an airplane is flying at 200 knots, okay, and well, if I tell you this aircraft is flying at 200 knots, and that aircraft, another aircraft is flying at 100 knots, that means the length of the arrow, the length of the vector will be different. For the first airplane I just told you, 200 knots, the length of the arrow body will reflect that value. And for 100 knots, for the other aircraft, the length of the arrow body will be shorter, will be less, because the other aircraft is flying at a lesser speed, which is 100 knots. But the directions of those two airplanes are indicated by the arrowheads wherever they're going. Okay, so velocity, a vector is speed and velocity. It's not just speed. Okay, so all right, now back to our experiment. Now with your cylinder not moving, not not rotating, turn your gigantic blower on. Okay, you turn the blower on, and air now is blowing. Air that is blowing toward your cylinder that is not moving. Okay, so the air that is the airflow that is heading toward toward the cylinder that is not moving, as you may already know, it is called relative wind, which flows in a opposite direction of a moving object in the air, and with equal velocity. So now you turn your blower on. The air is flowing toward the cylinder that is not rotating. Okay? So when that air reaches the cylinder, okay, the part of it is completely stopped right away. Okay? As soon as the air reaches the cylinder, remember the cylinder is not moving. Now there's a point where part of the air at a point on the surface of the cylinder that air is completely stopped. That point where the air is completely stopped is called stagnation point. Okay? Stagnation point. And at that point, velocity is zero because the air has no speed, okay, and no direction because it's not moving, and it's just stopped. So velocity at the stagnation point on the cylinder is zero. Okay, now remember, now that air is applying pressure, okay, to the cylinder, and you know that pressure on the cylinder and close to the cylinder, it is called static air pressure. Now, since the air, part of the air at the stagnation point, the air is not moving, is stopped. As a rule of thumb, okay, as velocity increases, static air pressure increases. As velocity decreases in aerodynamics, static pressure increases. So now we know that when airflow encounters an obstacle where it is completely stopped, so there's a high pressure, there's a high static air pressure at that point of stagnation. Okay? And at that point also, velocity is zero. Alright? Okay. But this is just one layer, or maybe two layers of the airflow. But okay, what about what happened to the other layers of the airflow? Well, some of them goes over the cylinder, and some of them go under the cylinder. Okay, so the air that that go the air layers, the airflow that first of all, the airflow, the air that is flowing over the non-rotational cylinder, that air is a constant, steady flow. Well, it is a constant, steady state airflow. That's what it is. So when it flows over the cylinder, it applies pressure on the surface of the cylinder, which is static pressure. But you know, because when the air, you know, is in action with a solid, there's a friction. There's friction effects that are happening between the two that cause those friction effects cause the airflow to lose energy. So the static pressure the static pressure of the air that is going over the cylinder and under the cylinder, they lose energy as the air losing the static pressure. The static pressures vary at different cross-sectional areas of the cylinder. So maybe at the point of the cylinder, you have high static pressure, and at this point, at this cross-sectional section of the cylinder, you have less static pressure, and so on and so on and so on. And that happens on the top and at the bottom of the cylinder. But since the cylinder is not moving, so you can consider the cylinder as I would say a symmetrical airfoil, if you want to call it that way. So now remember, the cylinder is not rotating. So at each cross-sectional section of the cylinder, there's static pressure. Okay, the air is applying pressure on the cylinder, static pressure, different pressures. Okay, but the cylinder is not moving. Okay, there's no angle of attack, anything like that to change the air velocity or pressure, or the air velocity. So now that means since there's no angle of attack, the cylinder is not going up or up. Okay, there's no lift, so it's a zero. You have zero lift. So the air that goes, the air at this stage, the total static pressure, okay, the total static pressure on the top of the wing, because remember you have several cross-sectional sections. So you got cross-sectional areas. You have static pressures on all of them. The total of static pressures on the top of the cylinder is equal to the total static pressure on the bottom of the cylinder. So what happened in this case? So there's a balance now between the top of the cylinder and the bottom of it. So in this case, there's no lift. There's no lift. Okay, because the cylinder is not rotating, and there's no in the angle of attack, AOA, is a 0. So whatever pressures you have at the cross-sectional areas on the top of the cylinder, okay, and remember they are represented by vector, okay. So each pair of vector, okay, they point at the same direction and they are equal. Okay, I'm talking about top and bottom from the beginning from the front of the cylinder to, well, to the back, if you allow me to say that. Okay, so at this junction, at this stage here, there's no, there are forces. There are two forces acting now. You have the forces. You have forces trying to pull the cylinder up, and you have a force. Well, you have forces that are trying to pull the cylinder up, and you have forces that are trying to pull the cylinder down. But since those forces are equal, so the cylinder is not going anywhere. There's no lift. It's not going to go up. It's not going to go down, because the forces are equal. And also and one thing you need to know, that there's the pressures I just talked to you about, those are static air pressures. Those pressures that are on the cylinder or close to the cylinder. But also remember, there's also the air surrounding the cylinder, which is the ambient. Well, you can call that ambient static air, or static ambient air. I think I can call it that. Okay, static ambient air. All right, so that's the air that's the air that surrounds the cylinder, and there is some kind of interaction between the static pressure and the ambient pressure. Okay, now the static there's a difference between, there can be a difference between the two. Okay, now the pressure, the static pressure, the static pressures that are approaching the cylinder, okay, they are higher than the ambient pressure. But the static pressures, okay, that are moving away from the top of the cylinder and the bottom of the cylinder, they are less than the ambient pressure. Okay, that's the reason why you have a balance between the top, between the forces on top and the forces at the bottom, which keep the cylinder in place and there's no lift. Okay, I hope you understand we don't have a wind tunnel to observe anything. I just kind of try to explain it to you, and then you can have some kind of an understanding how that works, how the air, how the moving, no, how the air acts on a cylinder that is not rotating. So that's it for now. Next time we will tackle the other side of it, which is the relationship of the air with a rotating cylinder, how the air acts on the cylinder that is rotating, that is moving. That's for next time. For now, take care and stay safe.